I'd call the meeting to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is public comment. I ask that people keep their comments limited to 5 minutes. You have to state your name, address, including city. We have a lot of people here for the pit bull discussion. I'm sure everyone has a lot of great things to say, pro and con and whatever. I'd like to try to keep it to a minimum because we still have a lot of business to take care of tonight. So this isn't all about one issue tonight. So first one is Mark Stenstrom.
Good evening.
Doc.
Bet you can't guess what I want to talk about. My name's Mark Stenstrom. I'm a veterinarian. I have an office here in Junction City. I live at 4878 Clarks Creek Road out in the county. So, in regard to the pit bull ordinance, I feel it's unnecessary now that we have an enforceable vicious dog ordinance on the books. We have speed limits in Junction City. And we don't feel the need to outlaw red cars because they look like they move fast. We've got a vicious dog ordinance. We don't need to pick on one breed, which may be well behaved. I don't feel like you discourage any criminal action by banning pit bulls, because I think it's still illegal to sell drugs and cook meth in Junction City. And I don't think ownership of a dog is going to discourage someone from their career choice. On Saturday, the 7th of July, I had a couple in my office, an E7 and his wife. They just PCS'd here. He's aviation. He's got rank, he's got disposable income, kind of people I love to see come in my office. 2 pit bulls. Why are you in my office? What brought you here? Well, sir, I can't take my dogs on Fort Riley because they're banned there, so I have to seek veterinary care elsewhere. I understand that. Are they banned here in Junction? We're staying at a long-term hotel awaiting purchase of a home. I said, yes, they are banned in Junction City. Are they banned in Manhattan and Abilene? I fudged and said, I don't know. He said, we'll be looking at Abilene and Manhattan. A good friend of mine has a quality key employee who's going to leave this community. She can't have her dog anymore. And that may seem trivial to some of you, but the people I deal with day in and day out, for most of them, those pets are part of their family. The people that you are punishing with this ordinance are the law-abiding, the ones who try to take good care of their pets, the ones who try to socialize their dogs, the ones that try to be responsible pet owners. I would never encourage anything that puts anyone in law enforcement at risk. We have the other ordinances in place. This is no longer necessary. It discourages people from living in our community. People who are contributing, tax-paying, property-owning people. We have hundreds of lots for sale, lots of vacant homes, lots of vacant rentals. If 1,000 people came here tonight and said, I'd move to Junction if I could have my dog, would that sway your opinion? Or maybe 100? Or does it take 10? Does it take 1? But you're turning your back on people who would otherwise choose this to be their home, send their kids to our school, go to our hospital, patronize our local businesses. I don't think that's something we can afford. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Willie Thornburg.
Commissioners, Willie Thornburg, 1815 South Spring Valley Road in Junction City, and Jim Clark Chevrolet, executive manager and owner, part owner. Commissioners, tonight I'm here to respectfully request that the commission consider removing the ban on the pit bulls as well. I currently don't have a dog of any breed, so metaphorically speaking, I don't have a dog in this fight. That's my attempt at humor, so maybe I should stick to selling cars. However, as a diehard, lifelong Junction City resident and an employer, I do feel like we need to talk about expanding or refining the laws to encompass any vicious dog, regardless of the breed. I have some pretty good friends in law enforcement and have been informed as to the many reasons why the ban was initiated years ago, why it was implemented and the benefits our city has received from that ban. The benefits, the specific threat to the safety of law enforcement officers and the public at large. And thankfully, that threat, I think, was dealt with properly. And I think, Commissioner Brown, I think you were part of that, so I thank you for helping clean that mess up. However, I think now we're facing some unintended consequences of the ban. We have families not able to legally live in our community if they have a specific breed of pet in their family. I don't think there's a person who does not have a family member or at least know of families that have a pit bull as a trusted pet and a valued family member. Currently, they call them every name other than a pit bull, and live in fear that they're going to have to make a decision to either leave our community or get rid of one of their family members. I've experienced firsthand how it's affected our labor pool, and have heard from my friends in the veterinary field of families choosing other communities to reside in solely because their family pet is not allowed in Junction City. I'm also positive that there's not a single person in this room that is not in favor of doing everything that we can do to keep our community safe from vicious dogs of any breed. In my opinion, we should be equally protected from a Rottweiler, a Doberman Pinscher, German Shepherds, or any other breed that can be lethally ferocious or have been trained or are individually predisposed to be vicious. Therefore, I respectfully ask again that this commission carefully weigh how we can use our current vicious dog ordinance to protect law enforcement and the community at large from nefarious individuals and vicious dogs of any breed and lift the ban on the pit bulls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, if we could stop the applause after each speaker, I know you're very enthusiastic, and that's wonderful, and you're here, and that's great, but we need to move on, okay? We have Natasha Santiago. Whack.
Good evening. My name is Natasha Santiago Wack. I live at 216 North Webster Street, apartment A11. I want to speak about the dogs, about pit bulls a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with the name Michael Vick. 51 dogs were rescued from the fighting pits of a wooded Virginia compound belonging to Atlanta Falcons quarterback Michael Vick. Life for those dogs was sadistic. They were electrocuted, beaten, kicked, hanged, drowned, and forced to fight. 48 were taken in by rescue groups and eventually adopted into people's homes and have thrived beyond expectations. Some have become therapy and service animals, others social media and television stars. 2 will or have stayed at Best Friends Animal Society in Utah for the rest of their lives. Even the Humane Society of the United States, which once advocated euthanasia for all fighting dogs, now operates a dog fighting rescue coalition that has placed hundreds of former captives in good homes. Pit bulls have shown that you can't judge them on breed or background. I'm nervous, I'm sorry. Or where they came from, or how they were raised. You have to look at each dog individually. The American Temperament Test Society, ATTS, tests dogs for stability, shyness, aggressiveness, friendliness, and the instinct to protect its handler. A dog can fail a test by showing unprovoked aggression, panic without recovery, or strong avoidance. Both the American Staffordshire Terrier and the American Pit Bull Terrier, two dog breeds commonly categorized as pit bulls, come in toward the top of the list with 84.5 and 86.8% passage rates, which puts them above 121 other breeds of dogs, including the Golden Retriever, Beagles, and Cocker Spaniels. I have worked at the animal shelter here in Junction City for over 2 years, and I have never in those 2 years met a pit bull that was aggressive towards human. I have met pit bulls that were selective towards other dogs, but that is known for pit bulls. Although pit bulls can live with other dogs. I've seen that as well. I have friends who have like 3 pit bulls. I have a friend, she's running a business in Manhattan, has 3 pit bulls. They are therapy dogs. She's a piano teacher with 3 pit bulls. She's keeping her business in Manhattan because she can't do it here, unfortunately. We did have pit bulls at the shelter for almost an entire year because we could not adopt them out in Junction City. Or rescues who would have been able to pull them couldn't because rescues are flooded with pit bulls. I have met almost 2,000 dogs during my time at the shelter, all different kind of breeds. The dogs, they have a run that they sit in all day long, and the shelter does everything to keep them entertained and busy, but they only can do what they can. So letting them out 2-3 times a day, that is it. But whenever you open the door to that run, I was never attacked. I never was afraid. There was no reason to be afraid. All they wanted to do is to please you. So the last thing I want to say, it takes a lot of work to make a pit bull show unprovoked human aggression. It is not in their nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheyenne Hutchinson.
Hi, guys. My name is Cheyenne Hutchinson. I live at 414 West Vine Street in Junction City. I've been a resident here for 4 years now, and I was born and raised in the area. I have an American Staffordshire Terrier, who I have temporarily had to rehome due to this pit bull ban. Because of his breed, we are being forced to move from this town. My young son and I have called home. The stereotype that goes along with these dogs, with my dog's breed, is forcing us to move somewhere in order to keep our beloved pet. My 2-year-old son's best friend. He is more than just a dog. He is our family. He has no history of aggression, but due to his breed, he is labeled as dangerous. Anyone who has ever owned a dog can attest to the fact that any dog in any breed can be dangerous. We are choosing to move to Manhattan because they have a dangerous dog ordinance in the city. I personally think Junction City could benefit from a dangerous dog ordinance in place of the current ban. Any person that owns a vicious breed would need to report and register the dog with the city. They would be required to comply with the following demands. They would need to be spayed or neutered, microchipped. If the dog is on the owner's property, they would need to be confined or in a locked fence. They would need to put up notice signs such as beware of dog. If not on the owner's property, say they're going for a walk or for a ride, they would of course need to be leashed. I believe that all good dog owners would take these precautions to be able to have their dogs within the city. They would be willing to do anything for their furry family members. I know for a fact that I'm not the only one that has had to leave this community because of this breed-specific ban. And unfortunately, till something changes with this, I won't be the only one leaving this community and going to the welcoming city of Manhattan. I am sad and disappointed to leave this community I've called home, the town where my job is, all due to a ban on a specific breed of dog. I really hope that you will take into consideration, not just for the sake of my dog, but for all the others out there getting stereotyped unfairly. Responsible dog owners are the key here, not a specific breed. I encourage all of you to do your homework on the breed. They are no more dangerous than any other breed out there. And thank you all for your time. I appreciate you giving me a chance to speak, and you'll have a great evening, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Juan Fernandez.
How are y'all doing this evening? My name is Juan Fernandez. I reside at 1007 Cypress Street here in Junction City. I am an owner of American Bullies. Currently, my bullies are all living in Iowa at my partner's house because of this ban. I personally think this ban is uncalled for. I see a lot of other counties and areas in Kansas and Missouri who have lifted the ban with restrictions, which I agree with. Because there are a lot of responsible owners. To be honest with you, the majority of owners of pit bulls and bullies nowadays are responsible because they do buy their puppies, their bullies and pit bulls as puppies, and raise them in a obvious, well-environed state. I know police forces now that are adopting them out of shelters so they're not killed, and they're vigorously trained so they could be used on the police force. That could be something that could take place in JC. Instead of having them sit in a shelter where they could die, or kicking people out of the JC when they all recognize that this is a growing community and we can all move here. This is personally why I moved here. I used to live in Westmoreland when I was in the Army. As soon as I retired, we decided to stay in JC because it was a growing place and because I liked a lot of the people in the area. I've also noticed there was a lot of people with bullies and pit bulls, and I love that. Why? I'm not scared of them. They aren't vicious. Again, it's with along with every other breed, it's how you raise them, it's how you take care of them, it's how you let other people around them. It's all nurtured. It's just like a newborn baby. You have to teach it everything. It's not born and it's not instilled with all its manners. If you don't teach a dog right, it's going to do wrong, or it's going to do what it thinks it's right, which is usually wrong. I've seen very socialized dogs be socialized with other dogs, other cats, farm animals. Pit bulls and bullies both are used today as hunting features. Again, police officers are using them on their force. So they're also a tool because of their smarts. They're not only a pet. And so a lot of these families, just like this young lady that just sat down, many of their children, that's their brothers and sisters. They're their best friend to go to. And I seriously believe if this ban isn't lifted and put some common sense restrictions on this breed, JC's going to end up empty. And I'd hate to see this place end up empty because there's a lot of lots, there's a lot of houses being built out here. I personally would like to buy another house out here, but I'm not going to stay out here any longer if I can't have my dogs. My dogs have been in Iowa for half the time I've lived here, and that's not fair to them because it's going to come to a point where I'm going to go see my dogs and they're not going to know me. So I appreciate you guys listening to us today, and I really hope that some of this verbiage affects y'all and it helps us out in some sort of ways because there are a lot of caring people out here. I understand there's a lot of people that take the breed and do bad with it, dump them in the street, put them to fight, but we're not one of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Kim Bradney.
Hi, I'm Kim Bradney, and I have been a resident of Junction City since 1999.
What's your address, ma'am?
I'm sorry, 639 West 8th Street.
Thank you.
I do appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts on our city's breed-specific legislation ordinance. To begin, breed-based policies are not founded on science or credible data, but on myths and misinformation surrounding specific breeds. Experts like the American Veterinary Medical Association, the American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior, the National Animal Control Association, and even the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention agree that no breed of dog is inherently dangerous, so they reject breed-specific policies. Breed bans do very little to hold irresponsible owners accountable. Irresponsible dog owners are going to continue to be irresponsible regardless of the breed of dog they own. My neighbor's whatever that thing is, that roams the neighborhood is far more menacing than any big dog I've ever encountered. That dog has countlessly, crossed the street to come over and bark and snap at me and my dogs. Singling out residents by the breed of dog they own is a flawed strategy that hurts the families who love them. You just heard of Cheyenne and why she's choosing to move to Manhattan. And as Dr. Stenstrom said, a lot of these families have to choose between whether they keep their animal or they stay in their home. And as Cheyenne mentioned, she's moving to Manhattan. And that's something that we as a community cannot afford to have happen over and over because it is happening. Breed bans and restrictions waste precious shelter, time, and resources on dogs who already have loving homes and have done nothing wrong other than being the wrong kind of dog. And Natasha has shared that with you too. These resources should be used for animals who are truly homeless. Currently, as I said, our animal shelter is flooded with unadoptable dogs because of the city's ban on pit bull-looking dogs. These dogs often sit in the shelter for months on end waiting for rescue, and when that doesn't happen, they're euthanized. I wholeheartedly support regulations for dogs and their owners. However, I believe that restricting and regulating dog ownership by breed does nothing to prevent dog bites or improve public safety for the citizens of Junction City. Instead, we need to create regulations that encourage responsible pet ownership. We also need to identify a way to encourage owners to spay or neuter their dogs and their cats. We need to make it mandatory that all dog owners have a fenced-in backyard if possible. I urge this commission to repeal the current BSL ordinance and recognize that it's time to leave this kind of bad policy where it belongs, in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Gabby Town.
Hi, my name is Gabby Town. My residence is 231 Robin Hood Drive here in Junction City. Obviously, many people in our community are passionate about the pit bull ban and abolishing it. But not only is our community, but our students are as well. I'm a recent graduate of Junction City High School, class of 2018. And in my government class, in Mr. Rick's, we had a project named Project Citizen. I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but we basically get to choose something that, as a class, we're all passionate about, something that we want to change in our community, trying to get us as seniors into the government world outside of high school and textbooks. So our class chose the pit bull ban, and we researched all semester, many websites. We actually spoke to the chief of police, Chief Dan Bursey, and our animal control officer, Courtney Brodowski. We talked to them about the ban, went over the ordinance, and decided how we were going to reform it. So basically, our idea was that we wanted to abolish the pit bull ban and come up with the dangerous dog ordinance with a temperament test, like many people have talked about. That would not only keep our public safety up by not only covering a breed-specific ban, but it'd cover all dogs. The top 5 that we came up with, I know German Shepherds, Chow Chows, Pit Bulls were up there. But we made surveys that we posted on social media that we got an enormous positive feedback about. I think we had almost 3,000 people from all over in Manhattan, Junction City, Abilene, that told us that the pit bull ban, that they think that we should also have it abolished as well. But we spent a lot of time doing this, and as outgoing seniors, and finally joining the real world is what Mr. Ricks told us. This is something that we were really passionate about, so I would just like to say that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily Fawcett.
I am Emily Fawcett. I reside at 627 Crestview Drive here in Junction City, Kansas. And I too, surprise, 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 am here about the pit bull ban. You guys have heard me get to talk about it for years and years and years since I've arrived here in Junction City. I've now been owner of the Pampered Pet in your community for 13 years. And it saddens me to see that Businesses are leaving. Businesses are going out of business. And my folks, as we know, are here in the real estate business, and more houses are for sale. Soon to be mine, potentially. I'm going to go back a few years when I was taking an employee of mine home, and we were over by the high school. And I noticed an object in the middle of the road. It was late at night. It was one of those summer nights where, you know, it's 9:30 at night and it's still 116 degrees outside. And I got out of my vehicle and stopped, and I was like, please don't be a dog. Just don't be a dog. And I got out of my vehicle, and lo and behold, it was who we now refer to as Einstein. And Einstein was almost dead in the road that night. And I took him back to my store, put an IV in him, started to cool him down, called the police department, and said, listen, I've got a really big pit bull here, and I don't know what to do. And they said, well, it's on you. And I just remember not wanting to let him go anywhere, and looking and looking and looking for a reputable rescue that would take him. And my father, as you all know, Jim Fawcett, has this really horrible disease called Parkinson's. And my dad developed a bond with Einstein. And if you've all met him, he's a big knucklehead. He's fantastic.
Your dad or?
Both, yeah, seriously, yes.
Sorry, Jim.
All the above. But my dad, and we've always been a dog family, and my dad and Einstein just created this bond. And you know, when you have Parkinson's, they usually square you up with, like, you know, these really big dogs. And my dad is not the biggest guy in the world, and so he needed, you know, a dog that could handle him. And so we immediately entered Einstein into a training program, and Einstein had been trained for about 3 years. And one day, not that long ago, I picked my parents up from the airport. And forgive me if I get a little emotional. Picked my dad up from the airport, and my dad wasn't acting right. And I had Einstein. And my dad was in the back of the vehicle, and my dad was bobbing and weaving, and some things were happening with my dad. And I tell you what, that dog did things that we've never trained that dog to do. That dog secured my father, licked my father, and took care of my dad until we got him to the nearest hospital in Manhattan to take care of my dad. And he was hospitalized for a really long time, but I'm really glad that my dad is here.
Don't cry about it.
And so Einstein's here today. He's an amazing representation of the breed. Not only that, but about a year ago, I got another, real fired up again about pit bulls, because you had a wonderful dog who had been in this community for about 8 years, who wasn't a pit bull at all. She was a Spanish Alano. And people that weren't trained to know the difference went after her. And I tell you what, I fought with all my vigor to make sure that we could do whatever we had to do to make sure that that dog was not taken away from her owners by the way that she looked. And her name was Blue Diamond. And she's probably one of the best damn dogs I've ever met in my entire life. So I'm here for Blue. I'm here for Einstein. I'm here for all the other dogs. Your pit bull ban has been in place for 20 years, and what has it done? Nothing. It's cost you money, it's cost you time, it's cost you resources. A couple weeks ago, you had a bunch of police officers show up at my house. Showed up at my house, showed up at my parents' house. Our resources. Went down to my pet store, talking to my employees. Did this for 3 days. Called the state on me. My house used to be a licensed rescue. It's not anymore. I've decided to walk away from it because this was so hurtful and devastating to me. Finally, when the animal control officer and the police officer showed up at my house, I said, what do you need? What do you want? What's going on here? Why are you going after my family? Why are you going after my staff? Well, we're looking for the pit bulls that you have chained up in your basement. Me of all people, I was insulted that day. How dare anybody? I'm not saying I'm above the law, but I have represented this community to the forefront in the 13 years that I have been here. I have gone to hurricanes, I have gone into fires, I have gone into tornadoes representing this community, and you used your resources to come after me to find dead dogs and pit bulls chained up in my basement? I don't think so. So for those dogs that weren't in my basement, I'm here today. It's time for Junction City to have a win, and it's time for a change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linnea Alt.
I'd like to see Einstein. This is Einstein.
Bring him around.
Yeah, we can't see him.
He's a big baby.
Einstein stay at the pet store now. Because
Hi.
they really lazy. Service dog. We keep him at the pet store because really this young child come in.
Yeah.
And they want to touch everything. There are some things they want to touch. I'm sure you. may or may not
Jim, we're going to
know.
have to move on. We've got one more speaker, okay? Thank you.
Appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He's a hot boy.
I'll make sure Einstein doesn't take any of your time.
Absolutely, no, we're good. Hi, everyone. My name's Linnea Alt. I'm president of Friends of Animals. I live in the county, and I'm a business owner, and I own property at 623 North Washington here in Junction City. I'm also a local attorney, and I've dealt with your dangerous dog ordinance. It works. It simply works. There's no need to have breed-specific legislation when we have something already in place. Several years ago, we had a committee that was formed to talk and to amend our Junction City animal ordinances. And at that time, we looked at the dangerous dog ordinance, and it was updated. And at that time, we were looking at also possibly deleting section B18 or 215.040B18, which is where the language is located, that it's unlawful for any person to keep, harbor, own, or in any way possess within the city limits of the city of Junction City, Kansas, any pit bull dog. Pit bull dog is defined to mean A, a Staffordshire Bull Terrier breed of dog, B, the American Pit Bull Terrier breed of dog, C, the American Staffordshire Terrier breed of dog, or D, any dog which has the appearance and characteristics of being predominantly of the breeds of Staffordshire Bull Terrier, American Pit Bull Terrier, American Staffordshire Terrier, or any combination of these breeds. Within the organization of Friends of Animals, I'm probably the person that I take care of the pit bulls that come into our Junction City Animal Shelter. These dogs are here. When the breed ban went in place in 1997, they didn't leave. Some of them have passed away. Some of them have gone to our shelter. When they come to our shelter, the owners don't come to claim them. They just go out and get a new one because there are penalties for them to have them in Junction City. And those that are not going to follow your breed ban anyways, they're filling our shelters. They're incredible dogs when they come in. We temperament test them just like we do any other breed. When a Labrador comes in, a Corgi, any of them that come into our Junction City, Gary County Animal Shelter, we temperament test all of them so that we can tell different rescues or different people who come in to adopt, oh, by the way, this dog gets along with other dogs, cats, or kids, or whatever. They have some food aggression or they don't have food aggression. That's something we do, and it's not something that we have to say, we have a different test for pit bulls or pit bull type dogs. It's not necessary. These dogs are just dogs. There's no reason to discriminate against any of them. I've had them in my home. They're here. And we're asking that you allow them to stay. The shelter's packed right now. We don't need to go through and have our Junction City animal control officer take these dogs from the homes that they're in because they're going to be there and we're going to have more. I've got a minimum of 5 right now that I'm working on, and rescues are full. So what I'm asking you to do is not take them from the homes they're already in, because we're having to extend resources to try to send these dogs into rescues that are already full. So the dangerous dog ordinance that you have in place, it's section 215.045. It works. So I'm asking you to rescind your pit bull ban and leave the dangerous dog ordinance in place so that we don't have this issue anymore at the shelter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the consent agenda. Any questions or concerns?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next item is public hearing to consider condemnation of the property located at 404 North Webster.
Mayor
Nickel.
Anderson, Commissioners, Jim will be putting slides up here. Mark Harmon normally does these presentations, but Mark will be away from the office till early September due to medical reasons. So we got an upside down picture to start with. This house here is at 404 Webster, so at the corner of 4th and Webster. A lot of complaints about, as you can see there, again, they're upside down, but I'll get it turned there. But a lot of complaints about this was a animal haven, basically cats and other wild animals got in there. No windows, there was gaps in the doors. So earlier this year, the codes department went in and boarded it up, which they have the right to do, and they did that. So if you look on the back side of the house, there's shingle issues. There's the trim's falling off. There is no electricity, no water or natural gas hooked to this house at this time. So Mark had, again, I wish Mark could be here tonight, but again, he cannot be.
Nobody lives there?
Nobody lives there. It's basically a storage house. We did not go inside, but the guys at board, it says it's, there's nothing inside. It's just basically a shell. And I think there's that one picture, to be the last picture probably. You can really see the back side of the house there, the west, on the side of the house, that'd be the west side, I believe.
Is that from a fire?
No, I think it's just deteriorated.
Oh.
It's deteriorated. It's just deteriorated. So,
Are the owners here in Junction City?
yes, they live on 12 West. And I'm not sure if they're here or not tonight. They live at 611 West 12th Street, and they were served with registered letter, so a certified letter.
Any further questions?
Nope.
Is there a motion?
Well, you need to know.
No.
That's the public hearing?
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and open the public hearing for this property. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
I would recommend that the attached resolution be adopted, which sets a date. I believe it's 3 months out. Pull it up right here.
Yeah, the governing body orders that the owner be given until December the 4th of
Right.
2018 to either repair
In
the
20
structure.
days.
Which is standard, so.
Right.
Make a motion, we approve resolution R2849, giving the property owners 120 days to repair or remove the structure at 404 North Webster.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Next item is promotion of Division EMS Training Chief and Probationary Firefighter Competition, presented by Chief Johnson.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I have the privilege to present to you this evening two individuals. The first individual is Zach Miklovic. He has finished his one-year probationary period, and he has accomplished getting his advanced EMT in that time frame. So we're looking for great things out of him in the future with that kind of drive to take on the AEMT and go through your probationary period. It's a lot of hard work. So at this time, I'd like to present to you firefighter AEMT Zach Miklovic.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
The next presentation is a promotion. We went through an interview process with 3 very qualified candidates. And at this time, I want to present to you Division Chief of EMS and Training, Kent Valsberg. He holds qualifications as an EMS instructor, advanced cardiac support instructor, basic life support instructor, emergency vehicle operator instructor, pediatric advanced life support instructor, intensive care technician, traffic incident management instructor, and he's also a member of the National Association of Emergency Medical Technicians, the Kansas Emergency Medical Services Association, the National EMS Management Association, and National Association of Emergency Medical Services Educators. His role, as you can tell, will be mostly taking care of our EMS, which I have found was consuming about 2/3 of my day. So now I have someone to help me with that. So this is going to take a load off and help us move forward. But also he is very qualified as a training officer, which is going to allow us to increase our training for the department and bring in and do those trainings that we need to do to maintain the qualifications and skills to give our firefighters opportunity. So at this time, I present his bugles to his wife. So hopefully, there you go. And his badge. Look kind of concerned there.
He trained me on the way here.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Next item is consideration of the request from HDR for an amendment to the construction service contract for the wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Mayor Landis, Don Lindeman at HDR is here and pop some slides up here. Don's going to give you an update on wastewater projects a little bit, and also a request from his firm for amendment to their contract that we entered into to do what I call the construction phase and inspection of the wastewater project. Excuse me.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Thank you for having me here tonight. Don Lindeman with HDR Engineering. I thought it would be a good time to do an update for both the water and the wastewater project. And as you may be aware, we recently got the logos painted on the water storage tank at the water treatment plant. So I wanted to point that out for anybody that may not have seen it to go out there and take a look at it. They were set up very nice to be able to be seen from both directions on the highway there past the. We'll be talking very quickly tonight about the water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant progress, and then finally the engineering amendment for the wastewater facilities. I've gone through this presentation previously. Previously, we focused on what was completed. We are now at a point where I'm trying to focus on what is remaining because we're now getting down to that substantial completion, final completion checklist. And what we've got here is a number of things. The HVAC startup and balancing, well 19 and 20 water quality testing and startup and demonstration, as well as some painting of pipes, some controls and hoses for the carbon dioxide feed system, and level sensor for the clear well and the plant itself, and just some finishing grading seating that's still required. As you recall, we had a number of base bid items that were for phase 1 improvements from the water treatment plant. Those are shown here. I've gone over them previously. The majority of those are complete. Also change order number 1, which was complete, and change order number 2, which was complete. We have change order number 2, which I've listed the items on there, which were Baker's, some electrical, temporary storage for the water storage tank, and a number of other items, and those have all been completed now. With reference to our Kansas Public Water Supply Loan Fund, nothing has changed at this time. We are still working on change order number 3, which will be some additional cleanup items at the water treatment plant. We're working with a contractor on those. They have cleared most of their equipment off. They still have a Connex container and some other things out there, but they are cleaning up the site very nicely right now. And I believe Carrie Gary's here, he'd probably tell you they're doing a decent job. I haven't heard any complaints from them yet. So right now, the water treatment plant work is about 92% complete. We have a substantial completion date of September 23rd and a final completion date of November 22nd. Some of that substantial completion date is going to be dependent on testing for the wells themselves. The KDHE has requested some additional testing that we thought was not required as a result of being in the middle of the well field. So they've requested that testing. It has to go through the state lab, and it's depending on how soon the state lab gets done with all of it that we can go ahead and put the wells in service. So that is our estimated substantial completion, but it will be a little bit dependent on the result of the tests being received from the wells themselves. The next thing I want to go over is the wastewater treatment plant improvements, and we had phase 1 construction improvements there as well. As you can see, our bid items are mostly complete. We have some documentation for the startup documentation and checkout that was complete that we're waiting for from the contractor. This is for the East Wastewater Plant, and then also some more items for change order number 1 and change order number 2. Those are all complete. Change order number 3 was the last one that you approved, is delivery for the RASWAS pump station. The pumps have been delayed. They are scheduled for shipment on August 10th. The contractor is working towards substantial and final completion for that part of the plant, and they may miss the substantial but get everything done by the final. They're working very diligently to get that done, but they have been dependent on the pumps as well. There was a large delay in shipment of the pumps that set them back. And I don't know if the tariffs or anything like that had something to do with it, but there was a delay from the manufacturer getting the pumps. The Southwest Water Treatment Plant is also in a similar situation where all the phase 1s are complete, and we're awaiting the documentation for the phase 1 improvements. And we're also working on, there was nothing on phase for the change order on phase 3 at the Southwest Wastewater Treatment Plant. We've completed 1 and 2 change order items for the Southwest plant, and then we're working on some additional items on there that will be incorporated into a final change order with everything out there. Looking at some butterfly valve replacement and some emergency lighting and things like that that have needed for that. With these facilities, we're about 98% complete. We still have the remaining RASWAS pump station, which is going to carry into later this fall to be finished. And you'll see that's the left-hand picture on the frame up there, and then the right-hand picture is the lighting that was completed at the Headworks building. Again, with this loan amount, we're still within the loan. Nothing has significantly changed. We're still working on that pending change order number 4. Now I get to come to the fun part. We have an amendment in front of you for the engineering amendment, and this covers a number of things. We have kept the construction contract moving, making sure that contractors on schedule and everything's moving, and as part of that, we have done some work, and we have some additional work yet to complete, and that is what this engineering amendment is going over. Amendments 1 and 2, excuse me, I said that wrong, 2 and 3, extended the time of the contract by roughly 318 days. It brought us out for about a 12-month extension as far as play applications, project managements, dealing with KDHE, other updates as we're going forward. So that's the first part of it. The next part is the design and construction phase services for the Headworks building lighting, which you saw is already installed. And then the RASWAS building piping equipment replacements, which was also design and construction phase services. Finally, there's additional coordination with KDHE to help button all these up over that time, submit additional pay applications. And one of the things that's kind of critical in here is having that resident project representative for the construction of the RASWAS and the other things that wasn't in our original contract because we've gone out past the time of our original contract. So those are the things that add up and make up the $144,000 amendment that's in front of you right now. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
We also did did additional projects from Phase 2 as well, since we had additional funds, correct?
Yes, the change order 2 and change order 3 had Phase 2 projects in them. That was the lighting in the Headworks building, and 3, the Razwaz pump station, was never anticipated. Each of those was never anticipated as part of this
And so we had
project.
such favorable bids on the Phase 1 projects.
Right, and we were able to get those in under the loan amendment, and that's part of what this amendment is all about.
Don, I'm going to jump to the subject real quick, but I was commissioned to hear this. We talked this afternoon about the amount of water the city has due to this drought. Got a call from Dewey one day, and one of the issues, of course, we get our water from Milford, and there's water coming in above. It rained north of there, not here until recently. But Don initiated and worked with VO last year in redoing 4 of our wells.
Yes.
And tell the Commission of Public really what that meant to us this summer.
The 4 wells that we had, there were some issues with the intake piping on them. There was some clogging on the wells. They needed to be cleaned and a number of things. And as Kerry will attest, they weren't working up to their capabilities. So as a result of that, we went in, worked with the wellman, Clark Well Drilling, and got them to go in clean and rehab the wells. And that actually brought your average production up so that you could get the wells to be able to meet all your demands through the system, even without the 2 wells that aren't online right now. So that was a significant, for very minimal dollars. I don't remember the dollar amount on that right now.
That was part of our VO, the contract anyhow.
Right, and we were able to get almost the equivalent of 1 3/4 wells capacity out of doing that improvement. And so that has helped significantly. I think Kerry would attest to that's been a great help in meeting the demand for water within the system.
The 2 new wells are 1,000
About 1,000
1,000
gallons.
each.
Yeah,
gallons per minute each, so
and that will put reliability into the system and make it much easier for dealing with taking wells out and maintaining them while they're working within that. And if something happens in the summer, they'll be able to do that.
off subject, but I wanted you to cover those, please. Thank you.
Any further questions?
You want to read that?
So we need a motion for the, for Amendment 1.
I'll make a motion for HDR Incorporated for amendment to their current contract for construction phase engineering services for Phase 1 wastewater treatment plant improvements as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment?
No.
All in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is review of ordinance G 1220 on the distribution of handbills.
Mayor Landis and Commissioners, I was contacted by Mr. Seaton a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the ordinance that the city adopted on April 17th, 2018. I think the biggest part is that to distribute handbills, or shoppers as I may call them, we now requires a licensing, which is $1,000 per year. There's a weekly or, for a set weekly license as well, of $50 a week or $1,000 per year for an annual license. Recently, the police, Chief Breesy stopped people that were distributing these, and this kind of all brought it to the forefront. And I believe Mr. Seaton is here tonight.
Mr. Seaton, do you have a comment?
I do. Ned Seaton, I'm the publisher of the Junction City Daily Union, and thanks for the service you all are doing. Lots to think about here. I'll try to be brief. We took over ownership of the Daily Union on May 1st, so we were unaware of the discussions about this ordinance at the time, and would have gladly participated in the discussion, but we just were unaware of it. The publication that we provide that's in question here is the Flint Hills Shopper. In the newspaper business, it's no secret that it's a challenging business environment for us and for all newspapers around the country right now. We really provide two services that customers pay us for. One is to provide information to our readers. That's our First Amendment protected duty that Mike's carrying out here at the moment. And secondly, we provide a service to businesses that want to reach good potential local customers. That's our advertising function. We provide an opportunity for advertisers to reach our subscribers in the Daily Union, and we provide an opportunity for advertisers to reach non-subscribing households through what we call the Flint Hills Shopper. This is a common practice by newspapers all around the country. As you know, we've been in business in Manhattan for, I'm the fourth generation. We're very similar to the Montgomery family in Junction City that own the paper here. The Montgomerys started this shopper in question quite some time ago. It's changed a little bit in nature, but basically that's the same thing. And we've been able to do that responsibly, in my view, in Manhattan. And in Manhattan, just like in Junction City, there are properties where people don't necessarily pick up a product that they don't subscribe to, whether that's a rental home or a home that happens to be vacant at the time, or somebody might have changed hands. I used to walk my kids to school from where I lived on just north of west of 17th Street down to Theodore Roosevelt Elementary School near downtown Manhattan. And there were areas along in there when I walked along where people didn't pick up those publications. And, they'd junk up the place, right? Mowers would come by to mow the rental properties and they'd get scattered about. And so I put a stop to that. We came around to pick them up if people didn't pick them up from their yards. For the past 3 weekends, we've done that here in Junction City as well, and that's the practice that we plan to keep going if we're allowed to distribute this shopper. The trouble with the ordinance, as I see it, is the cost, the fee. We pay independent contractors a weekly fee for them to distribute those publications for us to serve our advertisers and reach those households. They are independent contractors, so we can't pay that registration fee for them. That's another step toward them becoming an employee, and we don't want to be in that position. We pay independent contractors to deliver the publication that way because it's the most efficient way for us to do that for our advertisers to keep the cost low. But if they are required to pay a $1,000 a year license fee, that would be cost prohibitive. So what I'm asking is to give us a chance to work with the ordinance to distribute the material as we should, to maintain a good, do not distribute sort of list, to go up and pick up after ourselves, but to not require us to pay a $1,000 a year fee that we see as basically intended to put out of business a practice that's been in operation here for many years. So that's my request.
Well, we did this because we've had complaints for quite a while, myself included.
Long time.
Sick of it's litter. I don't look at them. I don't know many people that do. By the time you actually get them out of your yard, they're usually wet from dew or sprinklers or whatever. So they're rags anyway. And there's a couple that walks in my neighborhood up and down the street. They got a little trolley car with them. They pick them up in people's yards because they're just trash. And they came up to me complaining about it, and I'm fed up too. And I've called your paper 3 times to get them to stop throwing them in my yard, and they keep throwing them. So whatever you're doing is not working. I guarantee you that.
And I'm sorry, how recently was that?
Oh, within the last month, probably before you guys got stopped by the police from doing it. But,
well, okay, I can take responsibility for anything that's happened after May 1st, and I'll tell you right up front that we had a delivery person we had to change out because of a variety of issues. We think we're making improvements. We've gone up to pick up after ourselves for the last 3 weeks.
If they're in the mailbox, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
That gets to be cost prohibitive for us to deliver that way to all non-subscribing households. That has to be address specific because, as you know, we distribute the Daily Union to many households, so that gets to be costly.
Anybody else?
No.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that we put that in place to try and avoid the litter, and it might not have been your fault, but it's something that I feel that we have in place and should maybe keep in place. That way we prevent this from being an issue in the future, regardless of who the publisher might be of the paper, or regardless of who's distributing handbills or anything of of that type.
I guess we didn't think that $83.33 a month was too bad to have a license to do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I basically view that license fee as punitive, as basically intended to run this outfit out of business. I mean, this particular distribution system. I assume that was your intent.
Didn't we pass this after May 1st?
April 17th.
Was it April?
No, and to be honest, Mr. Dinkle's very helpful and said that, in fact, the Daily Union had been notified about this, and I'm sure we covered the meeting. This was before we were involved, so I don't know.
Yeah, I did contact, again, Mr. Brown. It says, we've done this before, and I think great idea, so I contacted and never got a response.
I can't speak for the ownership of the Daily Union prior to May 1st, and that goes for a variety of fronts.
I get it.
We're doing our best. Incidentally, we started home delivery of the paper today. We'll be putting out a Sunday paper starting this coming Sunday. So we're working on a variety of fronts to make things better, including picking up Junction City. And Commissioner, I know about your efforts and appreciate that very much. I participated in those myself.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, and I think it's great that you guys are coming over and doing the pickup and everything, but if I'm also hearing you as well, you are saying that either you don't want to pay the $1,000 or you think that's too high.
Correct.
Both.
Yes. The difficulty with the newspaper paying the $1,000 is that is one more step towards those people being employees, which is not a good situation for us to be in. It's a service that we provide to businesses, and it's a service that they want us to provide and they pay us to provide. But the more difficult we make it for them to reach those customers, the less of a business we have in doing that.
It's been going on for such a long time, sir, and I've had complaints, and I saw the same problem that Pat described in my neighborhood, too. I mean, the gutters just litter these things.
Yes, and we've been in business in Manhattan doing this for many years, too, and we pick up after ourselves.
And they didn't, and nor have they. And you would have thought that the contractors that do this for you would have made extra care in many cases to get those up into the driveways. Instead, a lot of times, if they have an angled driveway, they roll back in the street, and there they lay.
Yeah.
Forever. And I think that's what prompted this, and I think we've finally done something to mitigate this problem, because it does cause a blight in our neighborhoods, and it makes our neighborhoods look bad.
Well, we don't want to do that. That is absolutely not our intent. We're here to try to help make the town better.
Right. I don't have anything else for you.
What is the will of the commission?
I think we leave it the way it is for right now.
No interest in changing it at this time, Mayor?
That's our response.
Okay, thank you very much for taking the
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Next item is concerns regarding the present prohibition of pit bull dogs in the city of Junction City.
Of course, in your packet, I did put the letter that the commission received, and I, back in May 21st, from the Save Them All, I did, public knowledge here, you all received a letter this morning regarding supporting breed-specific legislation from an out-of-state person, and she provided the name. And then I also gave the commission today a article out of the American City County magazine about pit bull-specific prohibitions and in several cities and in the 20 states that pit bull or breed-specific legislation is not allowed in 20 states. And basically, the commission needs to decide if you want to have staff to move forward. Of course, to change this, we'll take an ordinance, which the city attorney will draft. Upon the recommendation of the city commission, if you want to, first of all, you want to move forward. Secondly, if you want any restrictions in there, and you heard some of them discussed tonight, from spayed and neutered and I'm unfamiliar with the temperament testing, whether that word was used, and if it's done by I don't understand, we'd have to maybe take a look at that. And Britney and I have talked about this. I also will provide the commission before the next meeting, survey I did of cities throughout the Kansas and the changes that it makes. That's sometimes what cities do look at.
Well, I'll go ahead and start.
Sure.
I think, Mayor, it's been very clear my position for a long time about this. For those you don't know, I used to be the police chief here in Junction City. For 37 and a half years, my goal has been to promote public safety. I was around when the pit bull ordinance started back in the 1990s, and that was some 20 years ago, but I just want to address, I think, what the situation is now. Whether you maybe believe that dogbite.org has any valid information or not, that's up to you, but it's 433 Americans have been killed by canines since 2005 through 2017. 66% of those were killed by pit bulls out of 433. 66%. The next lowest group was 10% by Rottweilers. The one key word that was used by all the folks that came up here, and I very much respect all of you. Thank you for coming in and standing up for what you believe is right. The one key word you used from time and time again from speaker to speaker is responsible pet owner. Responsible pet owner, having been in law enforcement as many years as I did, is the problem. Many of the individuals who own these dogs are not responsible pet owners. And I think it's safe to say, and I was reading some stuff today about it, pit bulls don't bite, normally they maul. I think, and I'm just going to give you one demonstrated case, and you guys can look this up yourself, and I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Bethany Stevens. Probably nobody. Bethany Stevens was a 22-year-old woman who lived in Goochland County, Virginia, on December 16th of 2017. She was an avid pit bull owner. She owned 2 pit bulls, loved her pit bulls, and for all accounts and purposes, according to the Sheriff's Department, she treated them very well, and they were most loved by her. Ms. Stevens took those dogs for a walk in the afternoon of December 16th, 2017, and when she didn't come back, her dad went looking for her. When he found her, the pit bulls were over, she was dead, and they were feeding on her. How do you make that up? How do you make a story like that up? I could not live with myself. If one child, and by the way, again, dogbite.org talks about the most victims being, the most age range is 0 to 2. 0 to 2. Being the victims most victimized, and normally, some over 50% of the time, I think it's a family dog that does it. And if you want to dispute those, you're more than welcome to do so. But I know if you go to dogbite.org, there's a bio on every person ever killed by a pit bull in there, or by any other type dog. There's an actual bio. Tells you the circumstances surrounding it, there's a photograph, and so on and so forth. So if one can shoot those facts down, I guess so be it. I couldn't live with myself if one person, one child, were killed or severely injured by something that I took an action on this commission. My whole life has been committed to protecting the public, and I can't go against the way I feel. Several years back, Topeka had a pit bull ordinance, and that pit bull ordinance was done away with. And within about 3 months after that, a 2-year-old girl was killed by a pit bull in Topeka. And I cannot, and when we talk about responsible owners, that's the problem. It's the irresponsible owners that makes everybody else look bad. And if you've seen a pit bull attack on an animal control officer on a video, go to YouTube. Look at a pit bull attack on an animal control officer or anybody for that fact. They don't want to let go. They'll go around 4 other people just to get back at the person they were going after, and they'll shred their arms, they'll shred their legs. And we got pictures today from a source, and I don't know who this person was, of small children, infants, laying in bed with their faces horribly disfigured, done by pit bulls. I could not live with myself, nor could I look myself in the mirror if I thought I had anything to do with some child, or anyone else for that matter, being killed or severely maimed in a situation by a dog that an irresponsible owner, or even responsible owner, that didn't know this was going to occur, occurred. I have no interest, Mayor, in reviewing this ordinance. That's the way I feel, and that's all I have to say, sir.
Thank you. We'll just kind of go around the horn here.
First of all, I applaud all of y'all that came forward tonight and have been, I guess, fighting your cause for the pit bull. I personally feel sad and bad for that breed of animal because I don't really feel like it's that animal's fault. And as Commissioner Brown spoke, it's the responsibility of those owners. And one of the things that I heard someone say earlier was when the animal gets turned into the animal shelter, the owners never come back and get them. They go get another one. So we continue to have more and more of those animals that are not being taken care of responsibly. For me personally, I think we as a commission, whatever our decisions are, we have to base it on what's the safety of our community and the citizens that live here. And if that's the will of the commission and at the end, then that's the thing that I look at is the responsibility of ourselves in to ensure that the community and the citizens are safe here in our town. Thank you, Mayor.
To echo everybody else, thank you guys for expressing your concerns. I'll start off by saying I'm a cat person, so I don't really have an opinion on the dogs thing. However, I think I would like to take some time and personally educate myself on the differences between a general vicious dog ordinance and a breed-specific ordinance, and compare the two as to what we have in place and what's in place in other communities. That way I can make a better decision, just not educated enough on that.
We do have a dangerous dog ordinance already.
We have both on there.
And the pit bull ordinance. We do have both.
And what I was saying I'd like to know more of is, like El Dorado just removed their pit bull ban. Is there any differences between their vicious dog ordinance and their pit bull ban, and have there been any cases and that sort of thing? Just personal education.
So I was on the committee I started up actually a few years ago to review all the animal control ordinances, and we made a lot of revisions to things and updated a lot of things, and things like, you can't leave a dog staked up for more than 15 minutes. You have to be on the residence, on the site to be there, which in the past you could do it forever. Leave them out there for as long as you want, no matter what, sun, rain, snow, whatever. So we cleaned a lot of things up. And when we talked about the pit bull ban, and we put the dangerous dog ordinance in there, but we had some people on the committee and also on the city commission that would not allow us to not have a pit bull ban on there. We had a few commissioners that had connections with Fort Riley, either retired or whatever, and out there at military bases, you can't have pit bulls, Rottweilers, German Shepherds, or Doberman Pinschers. So we weren't going to get any of this passed unless we had that on there. So that's kind of why that happened. And I never really had any experience with pit bulls ever. Now both my kids have them. And they're just babies. They're just sweet as can be. Every dog's different. I mean, I've got a Labrador that would tear the ears off anybody in a box truck. I guarantee it. And same thing with this other kind of chow mutt mixed dog I have, but they act tough, but they're just big babies. But I mean, I would be open to reviewing this, and I think there are certain things that could be in place to assess the animals. They've all got to be licensed. They've got to have protections in place for the public as well. I think it could be done. There are many other communities that have done this, and I realize why the police department did it back in the 90s, because there there's a lot of drug issues, and those guys had those kind of dogs, and to keep the police officers away, and I understand why it was done. I totally get it. But I think times have changed, and I think there's been a lot more education about the breed and breed-specific legislation that I think we need to take our time and review. And if the city commission doesn't want to take it on itself and relieve it from our ordinances, then maybe it needs to be a public vote, something like that. So that way it's the people speaking and not just us. But I think we need to be open and look at things. I realize something can always go bad. Totally get it. And what has happened to certain individuals is beyond horrific. If it happened to one of my family members, that would tear me apart. But I don't think you can just point at one breed, just like you can't point at one person and say, that particular race or country, or they're all bad people. I don't think you can do that. I think you have to look at it, at face value. And then the other thing is the economic impact on our community. I think that's one thing we're kind of leaving out. Public safety is our number one tenet as far as being on the city commission. That's the first thing we have to take care of, is safety for all of our citizens. But we also have to consider other values as well. So I think we need to have an open mind about this and maybe have some further discussions, some further education, and really review these things to make an informed decision. And again, if the commission itself does not want to remove it from the ordinance, then maybe it could be placed on a November ballot. Okay? All right.
Mayor, I want to add a couple things.
Sure.
Staff looked at Castle Rock, Colorado. Got rid of their breed-specific ordinance this spring. And one of the things that was talked about, and I didn't listen, Tammy and Lindsay listened to the whole discussion today, is I would suggest that the commission, with the number of people here tonight, do at least some review and have staff, along with Britain, puts it before. And I realize it's going to not be in a vote of the commission, and as always, I support the vote of the commission 100%. But what the town in Castle Rock did is that when you start, if you do put it on the ballot, it ends up being on the ballot, you also split your town at the same time. Is that an issue we're splitting the town over? Or maybe is it wiser to have a discussion, bring the people in here, and again, I even have questions about the testing you mentioned before, and what's considered, and I mean, and if there's science behind it, I believe there's science behind it, but need to understand that on those issues. And I think that's probably better. Castle Rock, Colorado took a year to get there. I don't want to take that long, but it took a year to get to where they got. They included chickens in theirs too and everything else. And we're going to hear that one pretty soon because we get requests to have chickens in town. Probably once a month I get one of those. So
specific?
Pretty specific. But we get those. And Castle Rock, they're even talking about ducks and everything else. But and Castle Rock, is now a town of almost 70,000. 40 years ago, they were 1,000 people, but with the growth in that Colorado Springs, Denver area, they've spoiled up. But, I would recommend the commission, and again, it's going to be the ultimate decision, is to do the review, as mentioned tonight, because, I did have a citizen call, and Mrs. McGuire, I can use her name, that she says, I don't want it, I like the breed specific right now, and then that's going to be the case. You're going to have people on both sides. I get that. But I really believe it might be better for the commission to take a look at, this is my recommendation, to take a look at discussion at least at that point in time. Because I said if it gets pushed to, there's ways to get it on the ballot. And if it gets on the ballot, if you allow it to get on the ballot, if you do a discussion and move to something, and again, I'm not opposed to any views here, you can put your ordinance in place. If it goes to the ballot and it does, first of all, it causes discussion in town, I think that's not good for the community. And secondly, it may not be able to put restrictions that we were mentioned tonight. I heard a lot of restrictions that people were fairly confident with, the spay and neuter and the temperament testing and those other issues. If it goes on the ballot, that may not be the place, and it might be tough to add those things after. So again, as city manager, my job, I always say, is not to go one side or the other, it's protect the process. And also to maybe provide for people to have discussions rather than split a community if it does go to a public vote.
Thank you. Mr. Seitz, anything to add?
Mr. Dingle covered it because we covered that together today. But something I can do if the commission wants me to is maybe put a memorandum or presentation regarding various ordinances if we want to compare and contrast. If we don't want to, I don't have to. But I've already done a preliminary training presentation for animal shelter staff as well as for the police department, just so they know what our ordinances are. So I already have some of that built up regarding our ordinances.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay,
Then I would recommend tabling, and that way it brings up the next agenda.
right. We'll just take no action and move on.
Which one on the next agenda?
Right. Okay, next item, consideration to award the playground park equipment bid to Athco.
No.
Did I skip one?
Yeah, it's not. No, you didn't. I skipped one.
Okay, you skipped one. It's usually me that's wrong.
It's my bad today.
The first.
Okay. As you know, bids were taken by the city last week on playground equipment. Since it's a community development block grant project, and we hired Northwest Kansas Planning Development, they handled the bid process, so it would be an open process, and it was. 3 bids came in. You know from my memo, 1 bid was exceeded the amount of time that was in the bid there, so it could be thrown out. The middle bidder did not have to require addendums, and we're not included in the proposal. High bidder, of course, is higher than some. If the city awards to the high bidder, it means that we have to find their $35,032 because we had a community development block grant. The whole project, when we put the grant together last year, was $376,488. CDBG will pay up to 1/2. So if we exceed that $376,488 total, any cost is solely of the local, the city, or the group to raise. In addition to the cost of the equipment, there's a $16,500 fee that we paid, that the commission approved last fall to pay Northwest Kansas Planning Development for grant administration. And that's still money well spent. I never want to do a grant administration on CDBG. There's too many rules because they can jerk your funding and future funding in a heartbeat. I believe we got 3 members of the committee here. 4 members of the committee here.
So as I read things, we had 3 bids, but only one of them qualified, and it happened to be the highest one.
Yeah.
And then also, we're still getting a $400,000 park for $86,000, and we have the grant information to use for future projects in the next couple years.
If that funding is needed this year, do we have the extra money?
Yeah,
in
we were
budget?
fine. Every budget has a little room in it, and we do. And you know, the question, of course, is or do you wait? You know, one suggestion was made to me to take the low bidder, but even though it take 18 weeks, which basically puts it next year, but also the low with the high bid, you're probably still talking a project that wouldn't get completed till mid-September anyhow.
I think that's being overly optimistic to think it would be done by then. I mean, at this point, by the time you put out,
At the earliest, yeah.
I mean, to put out
Yeah.
bids and 30 days to get them back.
Well, the bids are done.
The bids are done.
Well, even on the construction of the base and everything?
We're gonna do all that.
City's doing the concrete
Okay.
work.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do the work. Call Valley has drawn up plans. We got grading plans? Yeah, we do, okay. And the good part, if there's anything, and again, I don't want to get into business, Athco is the supplier for the equipment that iCare is using. So there is some synergies in quality, you know, and Kendall can tell you more about where everything's located and how close it is.
Sure, please, if you would.
Kendall Schoenrock, 1209 McFarland Road. So the center, there's a kidney bean shape that will be all covered in turf. And on that, with the Athco equipment, There are two significant towers in the middle. Athco also provided a lot of extra equipment to fill out that main kidney bean with a lot of other equipment. The bid includes a double zip line, 66 feet long, 2 ADA swings, a kid zone with a T-post swings that will be covered in shade, and basically the entire area is it's a really nice high-quality park design with turf, all the fall heights all calculated, and with the installation of the eye care equipment with the same company, they're going to have their team on site. We could potentially save on shipping. And in terms of the time frame, our initial conversations with Ed Lazier at the Parks Department and also with Alan kind of indicated we potentially could get the park shut down at the end of August, get everything moved out. All then we need to do is pour the concrete, get the rock in. Athco will come in with the turnkey solution for the turf, and then we're going to do a community build, which will take about 4 to 5 days to put the equipment in. So to your question specifically about time frame, it is plausible that we can get this done in September. If we go with a different, if that gets delayed, it probably won't be delayed that much longer. It really just comes in on how quickly we can get the current equipment out, the concrete poured, and Athco has already committed to a 5-week turnaround time for the equipment. So once we say go, we're going to set this up and get really moving on it.
So they are your preferred vendor anyway, regardless of price?
Well, I think that in terms of the total quality of the design of the park, as well as the relationship with, so they're out of Lenexa and they have a really strong staff. Matt Klein was the only representative that cared to show up for the bid opening. He indicated a lot of strong support for our park and wants a long-term relationship with us as Quality Play for All as an organization. But in addition to that, everything's domestic. The lowest bidder has to get stuff from overseas. That's part of the reason you've got a really long lead time and potentially going to have some issues getting stuff in from Europe. We think that Athco is the way to go with the quality of the equipment, the quality of the bid, as well as the fast turnaround time, which would potentially get us cranking this fall.
Okay.
And Department of Commerce did approve selecting the high bid. I mean, they approved it, and I would not move. I mean, as Kendall knows with grant stuff, unless I get approval from Commerce, we don't do anything.
That turnaround came very quickly, about 30 minutes after the questions went out. So it was pretty remarkable, the turnaround time on that.
I think this kind of plays in with what we're trying to do with the budget next year, as well as part of giving back to the community and some of the things that we've skimped on. So I'd make a motion that we award the playground park equipment bid to Athco at the amended amount.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? My comment is, where's the other 35 going to come from?
We'll have to take out of city general funds.
Okay.
I mean,
So
it'll be an expense.
So that's clear.
That means $35,000 less at the end of the year. I mean, you want to put it that way.
All right.
And it won't affect next year.
Well,
it affects future years because it's less carryover. But I'm comfortable enough that we're building enough balances that we just can't do it all the time.
Well, with everything this group has done for the city and funds that they've raised, it's very impressive. I'm fine with it.
I won't even want to ask Kendall and committee how many dollars they spend on time, travel.
It's countless.
Meals, and they've done it because they love the community. And I think that's
exactly.
And the survey is going to be really valuable to the city.
Very much so.
Rock star, yeah.
Any further comment?
Nope.
No.
All in favor of the motion respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you
Thanks,
all very much. Next item is consideration of the request by the Live-Will, Geary County to ban use of tobacco products and e-cigarettes in outdoor city parks and recreational facilities.
Mayor Landis and Commissioners, I was approached by Live-Will, Geary County, and maybe they can explain more part of their grant from Blue Cross, but to consider banning tobacco products and e-cigarette devices in all the city parks, playgrounds. They did leave off Heritage at this Heritage Park. So it'd be basically the parks where playgrounds are ball fields. We do ban from Rayford Stadium now. However, they step outside and smoke. But the question would be, of course, do you want a strict ordinance that puts fines in place? Some cities in Kansas have gone that way. Other cities have gone to strictly a resolution from the city, say we want to keep it out, and people kind of force themselves. Because I don't know, if I lit up at Rayford, I probably wouldn't get a ticket, but I'd probably get
Honestly,
scolded.
thought it was something that was already in.
I'd probably get tossed out of there.
Books.
Yeah. But
I mean, the hospital is a smoke-free campus. I
Yeah.
don't know why we couldn't do it elsewhere.
Yeah. And like I said, I think most people just
Folks, I'm
kind of
against
assume
this.
it's.
The police department's got enough to do.
you may want to
This is a PR nightmare for the police department. And we've got enough to do, or they have enough to do, excuse my French, Dan.
How's it going to enforce it?
I just think this is
the
not
city,
a good
the
thing.
city of Neodesha, and this was after I left her, so I was not part of it, was passed this year in January. They, and I can supply this to the commission for the next meeting, they basically say why tobacco should not be used in parks. They have a whole bunch of reasons, the children, the whole bit. And I don't know if they have the signs up, there's some signs available that says young lungs at play. Ban the smoking in there, or suggest people do that. I know from my experience in the ocean, they had a problem at baseball games where the adults would stand right behind the bleachers, and they didn't have, and down at the Little League Park, they just have bleachers setting up against the field there and stand behind there smoking, and we got complaints all the time, and so I'm assuming that was part of it. But I know they got some money from KDHE. And their enforcement is signs. The computer users will be notified about this policy. City staff will make period observations. Any found violators of this policy will be reminded of and asked to comply. They do it. They put it out there that, hey, we don't want it there, but there's no
voluntary
I
legislative.
wouldn't have any trouble with signage up there to that effect,
Yeah.
but I just think it's a nightmare.
To put-
I mean, right now, if we wanted to, I think if the police department and the city wanted to enforce just the parking on the grass alone in North Park, which the signs are all over the place, but they still do it. I mean, we could,
Yeah.
it would be a nightmare. And I just think that this is a bad, I'm not a smoker, never have been a smoker. I appreciate what they're trying to do, but I think given the police, law enforcement, another thing that they have to do, where I just think that's just not, and it's just as much those folks' park as it is the non-smokers. And I just don't see that that's
And we can market it.
an
or
issue. I
Put
truly
the
don't.
signage up saying this is a smoke-free park and
Yeah, you
that
could do
sort
the
of thing.
smoke-free park signage, or, bluff them if you need to, but.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
But
Do we need to hear from them? They're here. Okay.
You can, I mean, it's up to you.
We have any of the Live Well folks here today? We do. Ms. Jagerson,
Have a contingency here.
wonderful.
Susan Jagerson, 2111 Walker Road, Milford, Kansas. I'm the grant coordinator for the Pathways to Kansas Healthy Pathways Grant here for Geary County. We are proposing a tobacco-free ordinance for our parks and youth recreation facilities. Live Well Geary County believes that tobacco and e-cigarette devices used in the proximity of children and adults that are engaging in watching outdoor recreational activities is unhealthy and detrimental to their health and well-being. We have a unique opportunity to create and sustain an environment which supports a non-tobacco and non-e-cigarette norm through a tobacco and e-cigarette-free policy, rule enforcement, and adult peer modeling on city-owned outdoor recreational facilities. Parents, leaders, officials, coaches involved in recreation are role models for our youth and can have a positive effect on the lifestyle choices that they make. Cigarettes, once consumed in public places, are often discarded on the ground, which diminishes the beauty of recreational facilities, causes maintenance expenses, and also poses a risk to toddlers that will pick up the cigarette butts and ingest them. So Livewell Geary County is proposing that tobacco and e-cigarette use be prohibited in outdoor recreational facilities in Junction City, Kansas. It shall be unlawful for any person to use any form of tobacco or e-cigarettes at any outdoor recreational facilities. This includes playgrounds, athletic fields, aquatic areas, walking trails, restrooms, spectator or concession areas. We did, as Mr. Dinkle said, exempt Heritage Park because it has no playground, it has no sports fields, and the activities that go on there, the memorials and things like that. So we elected to exempt Heritage Park from this ordinance. Appropriate signs will be posted at all parks and recreational areas. Public education of this is a key point. So we're looking at public education through media. We're looking at working with some of the other agencies in our community that are promoting tobacco cessation programs. Along with this, the long-term goal for the pathways is not only to have tobacco-free parks, but to reduce the number of smokers in Geary County. The health statistics, the county health rankings have shown that Geary County is the #1 ranked area for smoking in Kansas. So that's a big reason why this push is going on and why several agencies within the community are working on tobacco cessation programs and activities. Any person found to be in violation of this policy will be reminded of it and asked to comply. If complying is refused, ejection from outdoor recreational place could be the next step. Tobacco use shall be defined as ingestion of any product containing, made, or derived from tobacco, containing nicotine, whether synthetically produced or derived from any other source that is intended for human consumption. E-cigarette shall be defined as ingestion of nicotine or other substance used in any electronic or battery-operated device, vaporizer, no vaping, that stimulates tobacco smoking or vaping by producing an aerosol that resembles smoke, vapor, or any component thereof. So that's our reasoning behind this tobacco-free policy. We think that it's a really good thing for Junction City. There were 12 cities last year in Kansas that implemented tobacco-free outdoor policies. With this grant from the Pathways grant, there's several more communities that are working on it now. As part of our requirement for the Pathways grant, we have to address the tobacco cessation issues. So, and part of that is setting a community policy, and the discussion with the Livewell Geary County Coalition and several of the other agencies was that this is a key policy to implement within our city. Any questions?
The signage, is that something that grant provides?
Yes.
And then as far as like Commissioner Brown was talking about the enforcement of it, if I'm in the park or somewhere and I'm smoking and someone's going to ask me to please not, and if I don't, is that where the police is going to get called in on it, or is there?
That's something that we have to address. That's kind of a thing that we have been struggling with, is the enforcement piece of it, because we work with, as part of the grant, we have access to the Public Health Law Center out of Minnesota. And they have told us that making sure that when you implement a policy, it's something that is going to have some teeth behind it. So it's not just something that, because you can always be lenient on a policy, but if you set a really lenient policy, then you can't be more stringent on it. So that is something that we have talked to Mr. Dinkle about, and talked among ourselves, talked with the Public Health Law Center, and talked with other communities. And so it varies what communities do, whether they just have it voluntarily, police yourself, you see the sign, you don't smoke or use tobacco, or whether there's a fine that comes with it, and then that's the question of how is that fine enforced. So that's conversations that are ongoing, conversations that Mr. Dinkle has had with other communities and things like that. We believe that there should be some kind of a fine associated with it. But again, it's kind of like the cell phone thing, because we all know that the cell phones are banned in Junction City, but we also know we're always behind somebody who's in their car on their phone. So the thing that I ask, and the thing that was pointed out to us by public health law and some of the other communities, is that more people will follow the policy than won't. I mean, if you see a sign, it's going to keep the honest people honest. If you see a sign that says, don't smoke here, young lungs at play, tobacco-free area, a lot of people are going to abide by that. You're going to have the people that don't. So let's not, interfere with our discussion about trying to make it perfect and trying to make it everything it can be. It's just the ability to make it better. So if we've got a policy in place, there are people that are going to follow it, and I think it's the majority of the people that are going to follow it. So, we can make all kinds of things of how we're going to enforce it and what we're going to do, but we really think that this is a key thing for our city. 71% of the community health assessment respondents said that they support tobacco-free parks. So the community health assessment that was done last year as part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield Healthy Pathways Grant, 71% of those respondents do support tobacco-free parks. And across the board, the main thing is the signage, getting the signage up there and making sure people see it. Another thing that we addressed was we had talked about whether there should be a designated area for smoking in the parks. And we all agreed that that just creates more trouble than it's worth, because I'm standing on this line. Can I smoke? Can I smoke on this line? So we thought that that was just more discussion, more issues. So we really thought that just banning tobacco use in our city parks so our youth aren't exposed to it was the way to go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, I'm in favor of the signage. I just don't want to have our officers have one more thing to
Right.
fool with, and they're busy enough as it is.
I would
I
agree
think
with
people
that.
will comply. If they just see the sign, I think they're going to comply for them 99% of the time, I think. So,
The city I mentioned before, like I said, they had a resolution basically encouraging and stating all the reasons why you shouldn't smoke in the park, and it showed that the city commission was behind encouragement and.
I think we're all supportive of that.
But not and my concern has been, and I shared with Susan, is enforcement, because I, as a citizen, can go ahead and come in and file a complaint and show up in court if I want to, and Britain's going to prosecute it, but nobody's going to do that either.
Right.
The idea would be just to make a resolution that we support it, and there would signage be up, but no enforcement mechanism.
And I can show you pictures of the sign. There's some neat signs out there, young lungs at play. My tongue twister, and being that there's some other signs out there on that I think do a good job. I don't know if any of the schools around here have the signs up or not. I know some communities have the young lung signs. Okay, yeah.
Anything else?
We'll work on a resolution.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next item, consideration ordinance G 1227, amending ordinance 302.010 to adopt the 2018 standard traffic ordinances. Mr. Stites.
Is it all right if I stay up here? Do you want me to go
That's
down?
fine. You're fine right there.
All right. I just want to show the proper deference. Basically, the lead municipalities, that's my word for the night, is going from the 2017 to the 2018. In the memorandum, I have pointed out some of the differences we have regarding driving under influence. It just defines what competent evidence is, doesn't change it. It's just they put a definition in the definition section and they refer to that. Apparently passing a stationary waste collection vehicle is an issue, so that's now in the ordinances.
What does that mean, really?
Basically, from when I read it, it's basically when they're out picking up the trash, and if you pass them improperly, it's akin, I don't want to say exactly like, but at least akin to like passing a school bus when it's stopped. Yeah, there's also a part in there where there's supposed to be certain signal flashers in the back of a waste collection vehicle that have to be seen at a certain distance. That way people know that it's stopped and working, so.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand that. So if the trash truck is in the neighborhood and you're trying to get out for work and they're stopping at every house, you can't go around them?
But potentially, I can, that one had a lot more to it than I expected it would, but that's something we can look into. I can make sure and make a memorandum to brief people on the implications of that, because that was a thought I had living over on Sunset, which is one way. That can lead to some fun times for my family, so. And also we deal with unlawful operation of a golf cart. It has to be properly lit at night. So way people can operate it then. Littering from motor vehicles, a new traffic infraction, as well as driving while suspended just has the increased punishments and a suspension if somebody has involuntary manslaughter or manslaughter by DUI on their record.
Questions? Motion?
Make a motion to adopt the 2018 STO as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
An ordinance, yeah.
Yep.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Next item, consideration ordinance S 3201, request for a special use permit to allow mobile home dealership license on land-zoned mobile home park district. Mr. Lindsay.
Mayor Landis, Commissioners, this is a pretty mundane request compared to the rest of the stuff you guys have been talking about tonight, but we were approached by the Northwind MHC LLC. We're the owners of the Northwind Trailer Park up at the north end of Westwood Boulevard at 1717 Westwood. What they're seeking is a special use permit that's going to allow them to sell mobile homes in that park on each lot. They're replacing the old mobile homes that are there with more current mobile homes that are allowed by ordinance in the city, newer than 1994, on a case-by-case basis for the potential new dwellers there in the park. State of Kansas will not issue them a dealership license without adequate zoning verification, so that's all they're seeking. They don't want a sales lot. They just want to be able to sell individual trailer houses on each lot. So the same group of people did that at the Meadowlark Trailer Park out on Grand Avenue, and I was talking with the county appraiser earlier this afternoon, and that's the only park in this city now that has 100% owner verification through titles. So they're doing their job.
Good.
Yeah.
Questions? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to accept the recommendation of the Metropolitan Planning Commission and to approve ordinance number S 3201, granting a special use permit to allow a mobile home dealership on property zone MH Mobile Home Park District located at 1717 Westwood Boulevard, Junction City, Kansas, for the reasons stated by the MPC.
Second.
That was a mouthful.
I know, I should have said as presented.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Landis?
Yes.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. You want to introduce, yeah.
Yeah, one quick second. We have an addition to the planning and zoning staff. Layla Bajalan is our new community planner that we hired according to the new interlocal agreement with the city and county. She comes from University of Nebraska at Lincoln with her master's in community and urban planning. She's smart, she's hardworking. Expect a lot of things from her, and you're going to be seeing a whole lot more of her. So,
great.
Welcome her.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Go Huskers.
Next item, consideration to enter into the grant application process for a COPS grant, Community-Oriented Policing Services. Chief Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I come before you tonight to seek approval to enter into a grant application process for a COPS grant, which is a community-oriented policing services, in partnership with USD 475 to acquire and install technology that would expedite the notification of the Police Department 911 system within seconds of an active shooter situation. This partnership would not cost the city anything in the long run. The grant to be applied is for 75% federal funds, 25% local government funds. The school district has advised that they would cover the 25% matching funds, costing the city nothing. This grant cannot be applied for directly by the school district, but it does state that they may enter into a partnership with their unit of local government. The maximum amount that can be applied for is $500,000, and this is the amount that we intend to apply for pending the approval of this commission. The technology that would be purchased with this grant is Safe Defend, a biometric safe that is full of defensive weapons and medical supplies. One of these safes would be placed in every classroom in the district if the grant was awarded. Once the safe is open, the police department's 911 center and other persons would be notified with an alarm that an emergency situation is happening at that school. This technology would also provide the department with the exact location of the safe being opened, which could aid in the preservation of further life. It is important to mention that we must submit this application if approved by the end of this month, July 30th. The budget impact, it says on my form, this would be paid for out of the general fund initially, and then the school district would reimburse us. There's no other special considerations. On one of the pages, 112 of your packet, it says what goes actually into this safe, and that will be pretty much up to the school district. Things like they have mentioned here, gel pepper spray, a baton, a window brake, trauma kit, safety vest, flex cuffs, high-intensity strobe flashlight, and a whistle, and possibly other things. It's no mention, and I'm sure it's not even considered putting a firearm in there. The staff recommends that we be allowed to move forward with this grant application process. Be glad to answer any questions that I might have.
I think anything that we can do to help in this active shooter situation is a good thing, so I'm all
I know
for
they
this.
put in for a grant that I've been told that they've already been awarded. It was one of those quick turnaround grants, I've been told, and that was awarded for the FSA, the high school and middle school for this same type of little safe. And this $500,000 would go to all the elementary schools in the school district, I believe, including, Fort Riley.
Do we need a motion, Mayor?
Yes, for the agreement. Because you have an interlocal between the city and the.
Make a motion to
Enter into agreement.
allow to move forward with the grant application process.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.
Next item, consideration of the agreement regarding school resource officer service with Geary County Schools, USD 475.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, the objective of this is to update the school resource officer service agreement between the City of Junction City and Unified School District 475. We currently maintain an agreement with USD 475 to assign police officers to work in the school district as school resource officers. This is an update to that agreement. USD 475 currently pays for 2 SROs for 10 months out of the year. In this new agreement for 2018-19 through 2020-23 school years, USD 475 will pay for 3 SROs for 10 months in fiscal year 2018-19 and 4 SROs for 10 months of fiscal year 2019-20 through, it's a 5-year contract. Fiscal year 2018 to 19 USD 475 would compensate the City of Junction City $6,000 per month per SRO assigned to a maximum of $180,000. USD 475 would compensate the City of Junction City for subsequent periods in accordance with the percent of change cited in the Bureau of Labor Statistics Table 1 Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, U.S. cities averaged by category. This figure would be agreed upon between the parties in July of each year. The Commission, I have on another page a supplemental agreement that I would believe would be in your packet, and it reads: the parties, City of Junction City and its Police Department and the Geary County Unified School District 475 seeks to clarify their agreement for providing school resource officers. Section 3.1 concerning staffing. Unless there is a prior mutual agreement between the parties, the department agrees to provide 3 SROs in the fiscal year 2018 and 19, and 4 in fiscal years 19 and 20, through the years 20 through 23. The parties both understand that staffing concerns can occur. In addition, it takes time to properly recruit, hire, train, and certify law enforcement officers, as well as the extra training required for SROs. The parties understand that the department's law enforcement duties require its first focus and attention to be crime detection, investigation, and deterrence. If the department is unable to fill the required number of SROs in 3.1, then the district will not be required to pay the full amount of the agreed-upon monies in a prorated basis as agreed upon in Section 10, compensation. 10.3 covers the monthly invoice based on the number of SROs assigned and working in the previous month. Example, if the department staffs the district with 2 as opposed to 3 officers, then the district will be expected to compensate the department no more than $12,000, $6,000 per SRO month. That was put in there just recently based on staffing levels because I don't anticipate being able to put anybody in this, an extra person in the school district until at least January of 2019. And so we thought it appropriate we'd put something in there based on staffing levels. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but staff recommends that we approve this update to the SRO contract with the schools.
With these changes, Chief, will you stay at 48?
We would go to 50.
Go to 50.
That's also in our budgeted proposal that we discussed last week. If this is approved, we would go to that.
And could you write down, what's your staffing level right now?
You're down?
We're down 5 officers right now.
How does the $6,000 a month equate with a union contract per officer?
Well, right now, the $6,000, if we look at what an officer costs the city currently in 2018 dollars, it's $57,500 a year with wages and benefits. By paying $60,000 right now for 10 months, I think it's we're doing real well to especially hire a new person. Now we have officers that are working the school that make more than that. But we feel fortunate that we are able to either renegotiate that at a later time, but I think I'm going to have those seasoned officers on the road or in the schools regardless.
So it covers a yearly salary, plus we get 2 months for vacation coverage in the summer.
Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. Any other questions?
Make a motion, we approve the agreement regarding school resource officers with Cary County Schools USD 475.
Second.
Moved and second. Is there any further discussion or comment? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief.
Next item is consideration of publish and set public hearing day for the 2019 city budget.
Mayor Landis, I'm recommending the publish for a public hearing on August 7th at 7 p.m. for a budget not to exceed 48.095 estimated mills.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to.
Just say so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
We'll have a hearing notice in the paper next week.
Great.
Your 10-day requirement.
Okay, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Brown.
No, I don't think I have anything, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Underhill.
Junction City Brigade Baseball was rained out tonight in Belton, Missouri, so we'll try again tomorrow. Hopefully they'll win, and that would mean that we'd have a home game this Friday night at Rayford if they do win. Other than that, I have nothing.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
July the 26th, next Thursday, is our Mac breakfast, 7 o'clock, 7:30 at the Marriott. Guest speaker will be Jill Nelson, Director of the Delivering Change, Healthy Moms, Healthy Babies, that program. So if you get a chance, please go. And then the combined MAC MRC will be at Fort Riley, August 8th, at Riley Conference Center at 11:30 to 1. So that'll be and the guest speaker will be General Kolashevsky. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Great discussion tonight. It's nice to see community involvement. Pets are something that people are very passionate about, and that's pretty obvious on display here tonight. And we don't have these discussions to divide us. We have them because this is our society. You should be able to speak freely about what your thoughts are and experiences and be respectful of one another. And I'm happy to see we have that debate up here on the commission because we didn't always have that at certain times. But it was good discussion. I appreciate everybody's input. I'm very happy with the city budget, keeping the mill levy stable. And we're finally going to be able to start fixing some more things around town. We've been working on a lot of streets the last few years and really starting to see some improvements there. But now we're going to start to fix some other things around town with the parks and different things. So stay tuned. You might start seeing some nice things next year, and you'll know why, because it's your tax dollars at work. That's all I have. Mr. Tinkle.
A couple of things real quickly. Chamber after hours Thursday night at Munson's restaurant. Rodeo is Friday and Saturday at the fairgrounds. Real quickly, walking trail. The walking trail, of course, is open. Read a comment, why did the city only light half the walking trail, not the other half? It's two projects. The east project is all on city property. We had a traffic enhancement grant to put on there. It was under our control, we get it done. The west half of the project, even though the city contributed dollars to it, as they also contributed dollars to Lacey and to Rucker Road for some improvements when they did highway improvement, made great sense because you don't have to pay all those extra mobilization fees. But KDOT did not want to put lighting in there. We're going to put lighting in later this sometime when KDOT allows us to. The city's going to pay for the lighting, but we have to follow their rules. It's their property, their right of way. So it'll happen there. It was not an oversight by city staff or engineering or anything else. It's just, it is what it is. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to thank the police department, fire department, Public Works, and Parks Department for all your great work that you did at Sundown Salute, keeping our community safe and clean. And I think people are out there had a really great experience. So thank you for the many hours that you guys put in. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Mr. Stites.
I'm just going to get started on that research for you, because I assume that's what the commission wanted, and
Please.
that's all I have for now.
Great. Chief Breesy? Chief Johnson?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ibarra is not here tonight. Mr. Lazier? Mr. Osborne? Mr. Peterson?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Gurman?
Nothing, sir, thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Nothing, thank you.
Milton?
Nothing.
Is there a
I have
motion?
an alibi.
Alibi.
Yeah, just a quick Saturday cleanup project, 8 o'clock. Thank you, Mayor.
It'd be an addendum.
Mulligan.
Yeah, it's not an alibi, yeah.
Mulligan.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor of the motion? Some say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you and good night.